Well, I'm Rob Lee, hockey, alongside Executive Director of the Senior Bowl, Phil Savage. And Phil, we are 2/3 through this process of getting to the NFL draft. Senior Bowl is done. The NFL Combine is done. You spent 5 days in Indianapolis this past week. Talk about some of the guys who have really helped themselves through this process, 2/3 of the way through the process, with the pro day still to come.
Well, Rob, I'd point to 5 players that were actually here in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Let's start with Ziggy Ansah, the defensive end from BYU. Checks in at over 6'5", over 270 pounds, runs a 4.63, tested extremely well, and now he will back up his game day performance here at the Senior Bowl with a terrific showing at the Combine. Another player that is basically coming from nowhere, Terron Armstead, the offensive tackle from Arkansas Pine Bluff, was a late addition to the Senior Bowl roster. He absolutely knocked the roof off of the Lucas Oil Stadium, ran 4.71, checked in at over 300 pounds. Very good athlete, has the versatility to play probably guard or tackle, but now people see him as a potential left tackle. I think he's probably a second-round pick,
really?
No later than the 3rd. And then how about E.J. Manuel, the quarterback from Florida State, game MVP at the Senior Bowl, shows up at Indianapolis, runs 4.65, threw the ball well. We knew he would interview well. He's so mature, the face of the program for the Seminoles. He's on the rise in the eyes of NFL scouts. And then how about Lane Johnson, Oklahoma offensive tackle, ran 4.72. At the Senior Bowl, he was not beaten a single time in pass protection. He's got the versatility to play left tackle or right tackle. I think he's in the top 10 now of this 2013 draft. And then the last player that I would mention to you, Cornelius Washington, a bit of an unknown at Georgia, underrated compared to the Jarvis Jones and other players that they had on that defense. Cornelius Washington comes to Mobile, then goes to the Combine. He runs 4.55 in the 40, tests off the charts. As a 4.3 defensive end, based on his practice performance and then his game performance here at the Senior Bowl, in conjunction now with his Combine performance, he's a man that's moving up. I think he's potentially even a 2nd or 3rd round pick now, and he was probably a 6th or 7th rounder coming into Mobile.
Wow. We'll talk about your other guys here. You call these your DNA guys, and you're going all CSI on me. Explain your DNA guys.
Well, I think one of the things that all the clubs look for are the players whose DNA matches from the regular season to the Senior Bowl to the Combine. And in other words, they've checked off the box at every step of this pre-draft process. Okay. And there's 3 players that came to mind immediately when I thought about this topic. Jonathan Franklin, UCLA running back, big production for the Bruins this year, helps him go to a bowl game. Then he shows up at the Senior Bowl, terrific in pass pro, caught the ball well, scored a touchdown in the game, very solid week. Then he gets to the Combine. People have questioned his time, all his speed, his entire career. Right. He runs 4.49, really put together a very good day in Indianapolis. I think he's easy to grade. You know exactly what you're going to get with Jonathan Franklin. 2 other players that I would mention, Marcus Wheaton, Oregon State wide receiver, over 90 catches during the season, comes to Senior Bowl, arguably the best wide receiver here, played for the North team, was consistent during the week. He's got the feet, the knee bend to drop his weight, get out of a cut, and then catch the football. And he backs it all up at the Combine. Very solid numbers across the board. And then the last player that I would mention to you, Rob, is Sylvester Williams. Now here's a young man who had a bad ankle and played on it the last 5 or 6 games for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Finished it out. Comes to Mobile, commits to us in December, goes through every practice, plays in the game, was our practice award winner for the defensive line, then shows up at Indianapolis, checks off every blank on all of the drills, runs 5.03 at 300+ pounds. I think he's a solid pick for somebody at the late 1st round, no later than the early 2nd round.
This draft seems to be potentially strong on the lines, the big boys. You don't have really maybe the skill positions that maybe you've had in the past, but defensive back's another story. I know you love all these guys that came to Mobile, and they delivered in Indy as well.
Well, I tell you, the offensive line, the defensive line, probably the strength of the draft. But just beneath that, and maybe not necessarily outside of D. Milner, who proved his worth and will go in the top 10 now, running sub 4.4 at almost 6 feet tall. But there are an absolute slew of corners and safeties that are going to go from the latter stages of the first round all the way through the fourth round. This may be the largest number of defensive backs ever taken in the first 4 rounds. And there were 4 players that were here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl that played and performed well at the Combine. Desmond Trufant. Marcus Trufant's his brother.
Right.
But Desmond Trufant, the question on him has been speed, top-end speed. He runs 4.38, tests off the charts, catches every ball. He's going in the first round. And then a couple of other ones I would mention to you, Jamar Taylor, Boise State, comes to Mobile, is a bit under the radar in terms of scout's eyes. All he did was perform extremely well at the Combine. He ran 4.39, benched 22 times at 225. I think he's at least a strong second-round consideration, and there's a chance that he might slip into the first round. And then our 2 small school corners that showed up here perform well. Then they go to the Combine and they test well. Robert Alford runs sub 4.4, jumps 40 inches in the vertical, 11 feet in the broad. He's got toughness, he's got quickness, man-to-man skills. And then B.W. Webb out of the College of William and Mary. B-Dub shows up at the Indianapolis Combine. He jumps 40.5 inches in the vertical and then goes 11 feet himself in the broad. Terrific ball skills, great athlete. Those are 2 young men that are going to have their names called probably as soon as the second round, but no later than the third.
40.5 inches. We could probably do that, but it'll take 2 or 3 jumps, right? And Phil Savage, you know, folks, if go to SeniorBowl.com, you have a breakdown by position from the Combine. You have a breakdown of all the practices at the Senior Bowl. It gives you an in-depth look at all these players. And Phil's been in the league 20 years as a scout, a GM, an executive. He knows his stuff. You can get information on the game, of course, but there's a lot more stuff on SeniorBowl.com than we've ever had in the past. Check it out. Plus, fantastic videos like this.